Hello and welcome. In this video series, we're going to be covering the basics of Python programming. In each video, I will show you step by step how to use the different tools and techniques of the Python programming language, and I'll do this by building programs with you. This is the very beginning, so we're going to cover Python installation using the idle and building a simple calculator program. And in case you're wondering what you're seeing here on the screen, this is a sneak preview of what we're going to build at the end of this video series. It's a simple calculator, but kind of sophisticated in the back. I can do exactly as you would imagine a calculator should work. I can put all sorts of operators and numbers in there and just keep going and hit enter and spits out an answer. Now, it may look simple, but it's got a lot of different techniques, a lot of different tools that are incorporated into this program. And we'll build up to this in this video series. For now, let's get started with installation. So first, I go over to Google, search Python download, click the first link you see, and go ahead and click this link. I've already downloaded it, and it's right here. Double click that. And I like to add python.exe to path. Hit install now, and go ahead and install that. And once this has finished installing, you'll see it added to your start menu. And of course, I'm using Windows. This also works on Apple if you're using that. Okay, setup successful. Let's go to the start menu. You can see it's also here in the recommended, but in case you want to see where it is, go over to the letter P. Here it is, Python 3.11. And let's go ahead and select the IDLE. And what this is a learning tool. And it stands for Integrated Development Learning Environment. And it's, super easy to use. Go ahead and click that. And what you see here is an empty screen. And this is where we're going to put all our code in. So let's get started with a simple print statement. Here, this is the first keyword here. It's print, and you know it's a keyword because it turns a different color. It turns purple, and if I remove any of that, it's a regular black color. So if I did print, open a parentheses, and you'll see all kinds of clues or hints coming out. Open a quotation mark, and let's just type in hello world. Close quotation, and close that off. Now, we want to go ahead and click run, and just do run module. And you'll see it'll ask you to save. Yeah, go ahead and save it as whatever you like. I like to save it on my desktop, and I'll just call it a calc. Go ahead and save that. And what you'll see is a shell opening in a new window. Now let's put this aside right here so that we can see the results of our program. Every time we run it, it'll appear here on the right side. Cool. So this is the first program you've ever done. If this is the first time you're doing it, just simply printing hello world. Now let's go ahead and go check out another keyword, and this time it is called input. And as the name implies, it is asking for an input from the user. And how this works is we're going to do what we did before, something like this, but instead of putting hello world, we're going to ask for, say, a number. And here, I will type in number. And let's put a colon in there to signify that we are asking the user to input something. Now, keep in mind that when you use the input, it needs to be stored somewhere, stored in what's called a variable. Also, here I can use this symbol here to signify that it's a comment, and it's not going to be part of the program. It's just for users or for us to read. And I can just type in anything I want here. It'll be ignored by the program itself, just for us to read. I'll type here a variable must be used to store inputs. And let's say my first variable would be num. And I'll use the equal sign to signify that I'm storing it. So whatever is going in here, I'm going to store it into here. Now, when we look at this, this is pretty intuitive where, okay, whatever input I type in, it gets stored in here, and that's the end of it. However, by default, if we don't specify what data type, then this is going to be a string. And what I mean by string is it's going to be basically like a letter or a word. It may appear as a number and whatnot, but that number would not be able to be used for calculations. Now, as an example, I can show you what I mean. Now that we have this input, I'll go ahead and do another print. And this time I'll just put there num. Okay. Now I'm going to use a shortcut here. You can go to File and type, hit the Save button, or do a Control S, which I like to do. It's faster, so I'll do a Control S. And then also another shortcut for Run is just typing F5, and I'll go ahead and do that on my keyboard as well. So if you do see me saving and then something appearing on the screen, that's because I'm using a shortcut. But I'll be sure to specify so you'll know what I'm doing. So I'll go ahead and hit F5. And here on the screen, once again, hello world. And this time is asking and waiting for an input by me. I'll go ahead and input letter 6. Hit enter, and there you go. It prints 6. Again, this is what's called a string because I didn't specify the data type. But what if I want a specific data type? And in this video, we're going to cover a very simple one called int. And now, instead of just input, I'm going to specify int. It is short for integer, as you can see here, integer. And what that simply means is that it is a number that does not have any decimals. So now I can do the same thing again. I'll go ahead and save, Control S, and run it. F5, same thing. I'll do this time number 7, and I'll spit out the same thing too. And you can play around with this. I'll do F5 again and try with a number with a decimal, 7.4, let's say, and you'll see that it'll give you an error because you specified an integer, and 7.4 is not an integer. That is what's called a float. So if you do want to print out a number that has decimals, we'll have to specify a float. And how we do that is like this. So I'll go ahead and do another variable, num2, and data type float, input once again, and I'll just call it number 2. Close that off. Okay. Oops. One too many quotation marks. And I'll do the same thing here. Print num2. I just hit save keyboard shortcut, and I'm going to hit F5. So the first number, I'm going to do just regular integer. Second number, I'll do a decimal. This time, 7.4. And there it is. So let's go ahead and create a very simple program. And before we create this program, I'm going to go over a quick design process with you. And this is really simple, really basic, and it's a good habit to do before jumping right into the code. I like to come up with a plan. So let's decide first what our plan is before actually programming. So I'll go ahead and put up my trusty paint. So the plan is, I'm going to ask the user for a number. So I know I want a number. And I want it to be able to handle operators. So operators such as plus, or minus, or divide, or multiplication. And I want it to, of course, compute it with another number. So I need to decide, do I want this to be a float, an integer, or whatnot? Sure, I'll go with float. So here, this is going to be a float. I know that this is going to be a float as well, which means this is going to be an input. So I'll need one input here, which means I'll need one variable for this guy, and I'll need another variable for this guy. So for sure, that's our two numbers. And then I also want another variable to store this operator. And this is also going to be an input. So the idea behind my plan is I'm going to ask the user, give me one number, and then I'll type a number, and then give me an operator, and then I'll type, say, plus, and then I'll give another number, say 8. And then when I hit enter, I want my result to show 16. All right? Okay, so now we have a basic gist of what we're doing before we actually jump into the code. So this gives us a clearer picture of organizing our thoughts, organizing our ideas on paper before getting to the code. So with that in mind, let's go ahead and start the design process. And typically in the programming world, we like to break it up into 3 parts. We have what's called the input section. We have the processing section and the output section. You may have seen this before. It's I, P, and O. So as the name implies, the input is where we store all of these guys. I'll go ahead and get rid of these. Okay, so I know in my plan I wanted a number. So first I'm going to ask for first number. And this time it's going to be a float. So I will just call it num1 equals float input. And I'll ask the user enter num1. Okay. So whatever we type in here will be stored into num1. And I also know that I want some kind of operator. Here, I will just call it operator. An operator this is going to be special. This is going to be a string. Obviously, operator is not a number, so it needs to be in a string format. So as we talked about before, if you're wanting a string, you don't need any data type because it defaults to a string. Input, and say enter operator. Okay, that'll save that. Oh, I should put a comment here so you know what I'm doing. Ask for operator. And lastly, ask for second num, also a float. And this will be num2 equals float input enter num2. Well, and that's it for the input section. Now that we have all our inputs, we can process them. So the idea is we want to take whatever num1 is, but this will be on the left side, and in the middle, the operator, and then on the right side, num2, similar to how we do math in general. It basically looks like 7 plus 8 and then equals, and hit enter, and it'll spit out an answer. So here we first need to determine what this operator is. We don't know right now, and this is where we're gonna cover another technique, or rather another keyword, and this is what's called the if statement. So if the user types in a plus, if the user types in a times or a divide or minus, it's going to do something different every time. And in this video, I will show you how to do a plus, and you can figure out the rest on your own. So here, if is a keyword, you'll see it change color to orange. And this is what's called a conditional statement. So this is the condition where if, I'll open a parentheses, if operator, okay, if operator is equal, now this is what's called the equality operator. This is going to check if it's the same. So you've heard of the equal sign. Equal sign is an assignment. The equal is a check. In other words, this is going to check for equality. If the operator is equal to a plus sign, and remember, the reason I have it in quotes is because this is considered a string. It's not a number. It's not a float or an int. This is a string. And since this is a string, and we know that this is a string, we can compare these two. So if this string, whatever the user input onto here, is equal or is the same as a plus sign, we're going to go ahead and do a plus operation. And I'll come up with another operator, and this is going to be called let's see, plus. I'll just call it plus is equal to, I'll take this num1 and simply use the regular mathematical operator and add it to num2. So what we're doing is we're taking num1, adding it to num2, storing that total value into a variable called plus. And that's it. Now we can do the output, which you've done before with the hello world. We'll simply do print. And let's give it a little note. We're going to say I'll say the result, colon, and I'll close the quotation mark. And now I want to put the value of plus right around here. And how we do that is I put a space there before the quotation mark, put a comma, and then put the value plus. Close that. And I'll go ahead and save it, Control S, and I'm going to run it. I'll do an F5. I'll just type F5 on my keyboard. Oh, and first thing you notice is I have a syntax error, and you'll come across plenty of these, careless mistakes here and there. I still make these mistakes, and the good thing is the compiler, or rather the interpreter and the programs will capture all these mistakes for you. And as you can see, it's highlighting this parentheses red, and this makes sense because this is an extra parentheses here at the end. So I'm going to have to delete that to get rid of this error. Delete that. Let's try it again. Control S and F5. Okay, here on the bottom, it's asking for num1. I'll go ahead and do 5. Asking for the operator, I'll do a plus, since that's the only one that I have. And I'll do num2. I'll do a 4. And there you have it, 9.0. And keep in mind, the reason we have a decimal point is because we have these in floats. All right. And this is the skeleton of the calculator program, albeit it's only for 2 numbers, but it is capable of calculating just about anything. Now, the challenge here for you is to continue this if statement to include all the other operators. I'll do one more, and then you could do, I'll let you have fun with the other two. The next one I'll do is a minus. So if the operator is equal to a minus sign, and let's just call it what it is, a minus, and I'll just do num1 minus num2. And now I can do the result. Instead of plus, I can change this to minus. And here, let me clear this out. In fact, I'll just close it out and I'll run a new one. Go ahead and save it. Opens a new shell. And now I'll do 5 minus 4. Whoops. I'll do 5 minus 4. And there you have it. And this concludes this video. And I'll continue building off of this with new techniques, new variable types, new methods, and new tools for you. And we'll continue building all kinds of programs. And I hope you've enjoyed this video, and good luck.